Oh, baby. 2024 Best Ball Streets, they are heating up, and we are here for it. Yes, yes, yes. Welcome to Club Fantasy FFL. Welcome to Masterclass. Tonight, it is all about correlation. Correlation. As always, our co-host and professor, Stacy Perez, at Stacy_Perez83 on Twitter. You can find me at FantasyJ77 over there on Twitter. And tonight, like I said, it's all about correlation, but we have a special guest in the house, Mr. Austin Amandolia at Austin_FFL from Club Fantasy to talk about correlation week 17. Austin, how are we this evening, sir?
I'm good. How much did you practice that last name before the show? I'm like, it just rolled right off the tongue for you. I'm really impressed by that.
Well, so I actually watch your Saturday stream a good bit and copy what Ryan says. And so then Saturday night, I go in the mirror and I say it like 10 times just to make sure. Amandolia.
Does he appear like Beetlejuice if you say it so many times?
He hasn't yet.
You haven't hit the magic number yet.
No, maybe I need to just do it 3 and tap my heels. I don't know. But yeah, it's Stacy. How are you this evening?
Oh my gosh, I am absolutely fantastic. I can't wait. Ready to draft, ready to play around with this correlation a little bit more. We're still working on getting it memorized. I feel like I'm a disappointment to everybody out here correlating that I don't have it committed to memory yet.
Well, I don't think you have to worry too much about that. That's, besides the fact that the three of us are all Braves fans. Yes. That's one reason I wanted to get Austin on here. But the other reason, and I think you agree with this, is Austin is a correlation dude.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's my thing. I wrote the article last year for Club Fantasy, the Week 17 guy that talks about correlating all 16 matchups during Week 17, and it's going to be coming back. I'm already prepped for it. I've got all of the matchups already graded, my initial grades for them. I've got the stacks all pulled. I just got to write the article now.
So that'll be done, Tuesday, Wednesday?
I'm not putting a date on this. That's not how you do this. You tease it. You just say it's coming.
It's coming. It could be tomorrow. It could be next week. It could be later next week. Okay, that's a good tease there.
Yeah, look out. Well, that's why you should subscribe, right? So that you know exactly when it's going to drop.
Exactly.
And be checking out clubfantasyffl.com, where you can also find Austin's best ball rankings over there, which I do have pulled up tonight. So I can absolutely, Austin, you better stick to your rankings, because if you draft a player, I would not do that. But you can find Austin's rankings over there. Stacy, what are the details for tonight's draft? What are we doing?
Yeah, guys, so we're going to be doing Underdog Best Ball Mania. So I wanted to do another one of these right after the schedule drop so we can kind of see how all these teams are going to be correlated, what kind of builds people are putting together. You see the correlation more, I think, in these underdog drafts like this, these big tournaments that people are doing. If you wanted to draft a puppy, you are out of luck because those are all gone. So we're going to be doing Best Ball Mania because neither one of us has enough money in our accounts to do a Mastiff or a big dog. So we are of the people tonight. We are doing a $25 Best Ball Mania. You guys know the rules. 18-man roster. You've got, your 8 starters, 10 bench, half point PPR. This is a 3 receiver, roster that you're building here. So, ready to go, you guys. If there's anybody out there that wants to draft with us, jump on Underdog right now and get ready to smash that green Underdog enter button under BBM. And Austin, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, excellent. So, all right, guys, we're going to be hitting enter right now. All right, so we're waiting on 2 people.
Okay.
2 people to jump in.
Hopefully Austin got in this one as well, right?
Hopefully.
I think I also need 2 people, so that's a good sign.
That's got to be it then.
That's a good sign. All right, class is in session. The bell is about to ring. We are about to get fired up right here as soon as this fills up. But like you said, Stacy, the roster requirements on this one are 18-man, 8 starters, 10 bench, half point PPR. Yes, Austin, sir. Let's talk about correlation. What types of contests are you entering this year, and how do you choose your tournament contest?
Yeah, so I tend to look a lot at the advance rates whenever I am entering different tournament contests, and I'll also look at the max entry rates, and that'll really help determine which contests I do or don't enter. I actually am not a big Best Ball Mania guy typically because it is such a hard tournament to win. You have to essentially win 3 DFS tournaments to make it to the final and to win it, take it down, and that's pretty tough. So I usually am going for some smaller field stuff. One of my favorite contests last year was the Chow Chow, where it's a $50 entry. It's a little bit more, but there's fewer people playing in it, so there's a better chance of advancing and a better chance of winning. I also love those DraftKings contests actually because they offer up some single entry and some 3 entry contests, which is different than a lot of the underdog contests, which almost are exclusively 150 max enter, which means you get people just throwing a ton of darts. I like those contests where people only get one shot, and so they have to really put their best foot forward out the gate.
Yeah, as Stacy said, the puppy is closed. Is that what you said, Stacy? That
yeah,
one's full?
puppy looks like that. It's closed. I didn't see that as being available anymore, so I'm sure they'll put out another one. Here upstairs. So that's usually how that works. But Austin, I also, I mean, I like the big tournaments. I think those are a lot of fun. I think those are kind of like you can scratch the itch, right? If you get, like you just instant gratification, you want to jump on in and like draft right then and there. That's what I think these are great for. You're on the clock, so I'm just going to keep talking. But the standalone ones, those are great too. Especially like even if you're doing like higher stakes ones, that kind of thing. A little bit different. I like the odds better in those. You're not playing with 600,000 people. Maybe you're only playing with like 16,000 people. So, kind of works in your favor a little bit there. So you're drafting out of the 3rd spot. I'm all the way down here at the end, which is just rude.
Oh yeah, you get that nice 12 spot. So you're going to be in line for a decision about a Jahmyr Gibbs or a receiver.
So I actually did a BBM the other day. And I found I was in the 11th spot actually, and I found that I liked my team and how I was able to kind of like do some of the correlation. I liked it better at the end of the draft than I did one. I think I was like the 4th or 5th spot, like immediately after that, and absolutely hated it. Didn't feel like I could put together anything that I really liked, and I just felt like it was a huge mess. So I don't know. Maybe I've jinxed myself, but hopefully not. We'll see how this works.
Yeah, I've done a couple of the BBMs already, and I want to say 3 or 4 that I've done. In at least 2 of them, I've ended up with the 12th spot, and I'm always faced with that Jahmyr Gibbs, Marvin Harrison Jr. situation. And I'm like, well, how do you pass this up? But
Lions and 49ers.
And we will talk about this a little bit later on different ways to change that up. Yes, you still get the right players or the right value at those picks, but maybe you go down the board a little bit, and that way you can correlate with a player later on, right? Go ahead and get the Marvin Harrison Jr., but then have that in the back of your mind round 5, round 6, somewhere in that range. You're going to be looking at Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
And he's going to be slapping you in the face. Otherwise, you're not going to get him, and you're going to miss out on that.
100%. So, what I was just thinking, Gator, like, since this is like our masterclass, we're kind of introing people to like correlation in week 17 and all that. Like, Austin, can you tell the people, explain to the people, what is correlation? What is this that we're talking about? Like, why should we even be thinking about doing this with our drafts?
Yeah. So when we're talking about correlating, what we're talking about is correlating players. You probably heard the phrase correlation doesn't equal causation, but it's kind of actually what we're betting on here. We want to say that we're picking our players against each other, and that's going to cause them to all go off in our rosters to be successful. But it's a similar concept if you play DFS, where you want to try and get players from the same matchup because you're betting on upside. You're betting on those players to all pop off and for them to score a bunch of fantasy points, particularly in the playoffs of these tournaments. And so the idea is if you pick a receiver from one team and you want to correlate that player, you want to correlate them with someone from both their own team, which we call stacking, and from the team that they will be playing against in the playoffs. And that's where you get the correlation.
So I'm glad you brought that up at the very end right there, but what is the importance of stacking and correlating?
Yeah, so the importance of stacking, it's very simple. I said this on the mock draft show on Saturday. If you are not stacking, you are not going to make the final. It's just that is the data and the way it's bearing out. There were 0 contestants who made it to the final of Best Ball Mania last year who did not have a stack. Everybody in that final had stacked at least 2 players together. More often than not, they were stacking 3 or 4. So you have to be doing it if you want to give your roster the upside it needs to move to that final round.
One more from me before I let Stacy jump in. Can you stack too much?
So this is a really interesting question. There's some debate about this, where I know some people have said don't stack, don't go too wild with it. You can stack too much. What I would say is there were no teams that had 7 players from the same team who made it into the final of Best Ball Mania. So once you start getting to a point where you have like maybe 7 players from the same team, that's pretty rough. But actually, one thing that's interesting is that a higher percentage of finalists in Best Ball Mania had 5 players from the same team than the rest of the field. So of players in the field last year, 5% of them had 5 players from the same team, but for finalists, that was all the way up to 7%. So there was an advantage in having more players from the same team.
You're going to be. Go ahead, Stacy. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask on that. Like, was it a specific team? I know you're drafting right now, but was it a specific team that they had those 5 players from, or was it just like they had 5 players from a team? I'm curious.
That is a great question. I don't have that like right in front of me, but it was from the same team.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would love to know if it was from like, a specific team. Like, I'm trying to think like who were some of the higher like teams with fantasy numbers last year, like trying to guess who it might be.
Yeah, let me see if I can find that real quick for you.
Well, as you're going to be wrapping around here, ending up the second round is ending now. You're going to be coming back here in just a minute. I'll read through the first round. Christian McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Breece Hall, Puka Nacua, Bijan Robinson, A.J. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Marvin Harrison. Then the second round starts with Drake London, Brandon Ayuk, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Chris Olave, Mike Evans, Nico Collins. You went ahead and took Stephon Diggs there, which I like. Kyron Williams, Deebo Samuel ends out the second round there. Did the schedule release change the way you draft in the best ball, or even in I guess in best ball in general? And is it changing the way that you're going to be drafting here with Best Ball Mania 5?
Yes, it definitely changes how I draft because I'm way more focused on the matchups that are happening in weeks 15, 16, and 17. Whereas before I was going pretty much exclusively off of player takes. I'm going to make my pick now.
So today's announcement about Christian Watson looking good in camp, no issues. That was something you were every draft you were doing was like, okay, what's the hot news, trying to jump on that.
Yeah, exactly. And I was still stacking because I wanted to make some bets on players, but I wasn't doing it quite as much because I wanted to kind of expand my exposure so that I had as many players available to kind of pop off on a given week, not knowing the schedule at the time and not knowing how bye weeks would fall. But now that I have that information, I'm starting to make bets on specific teams to be really successful this year and for specific matchups to be to have a high upside towards the end of the season.
Very, very, very thoughtful there. Stacy, you're going to be coming up on the clock here with this wraparound. You've got Marvin Harrison and Drake London. I don't want to try to get too involved in your pick here, but when it comes to the correlation, at what point are you going, okay, this is the round I have to start correlating, or I'm not going to be able to correlate at all?
So I really had wanted Gibbs, honestly. So him going at 11 kind of, messed up my plan there. So I went with Marvin, was kind of hoping that Cooper Kupp would make it back to me. That didn't happen either. So now I'm kind of like, think I'm looking at like, okay, what am I going to do here? Where am I going to take some people? But I think you start kind of putting that together right off the bat. Of course, it doesn't mean that if you miss something that it's all for not and your whole team's ruined. I am gonna go ahead and grab. This is probably a smidge early. I'm gonna grab me some Trey McBride there. And now, ugh.
I'm trying to let you. I want you to talk through this process as you're.
I know. I've got 14 seconds. So I better figure it out soon. I'm thinking, okay, if I'm just going to take the best player available here, I think, because the person that I want, it's too soon to take him to go. I wanted somebody to go with that Atlanta stack right there, but it was a little too early. So hopefully he'll make it back to me. We'll see. But that's the thing I think you kind of have to, kind of keep in mind too. Like if you're doing this and you're trying to put together something and maybe somebody throws you a curveball in the middle of the draft, and it makes you say, okay, well, who's my next person that I want to pair with my team? Making sure that you don't end up, reaching too far for guys to go with your stack and kind of getting all out of whack with your draft strategy. There's something to be said, like I'm on the turn, so probably am going to have to be reaching for people because it's going to be another 24 picks or 23 picks before it gets back to me. But, don't go too crazy.
Yeah, there's somewhat of a debate going around, Austin, that only correlate week 17. Is week 17 what the only thing that you're looking at when you're thinking of correlation, or do you start beforehand?
Yeah, I start even earlier than week 17. I'm definitely prioritizing week 17 because that's where all the money is. But I want to also give myself a chance to get to week 17. And really what I'm looking at there is that week 15 and 16 matchup. I know that in order to advance in those weeks, that I'm going to have to probably beat everyone that I'm matched up against that week. So I'm probably going to have to, in Best Ball Mania, you have to be top out of, I think it's 13 to advance from week 15 to 16, and then the top scorer out of 12 to advance to the final. So I'm also looking at week 15 and 16 to give me that upside shot. For some data on this fact, if we're looking at teams that made the finals last year, 40% of teams that made the final last year had 4 players in the same game during week 15. That's compared to only 36% for the entire field. So the finalists are doing this 4% more often than the field. Similarly, the field has also had 5 players more frequently in that week 15 matchup compared to the field. That happened 17% of the time compared to 14% of for the field. So finalists, they're correlating week 15, 16. They have about 4 or 5 players. In week 15, they have about 4 or 5 players in the same matchup in week 16. And then they've focused more. They have between, some are as low as 3, but some are as high as 7 in that final week 17 matchup.
And as you're coming back up on the clock here, I just want to run through the chat real quick. We got a couple comments in the chat. One of them from Chris, where we were talking earlier about you think there was about 6 or 7 players from one team that somebody stacked when I asked the question about can you stack too much? And Chris says if he had to pick 5 players from one team, it'd be the Lions, and his 5 would be Goff, Amon-Ra, Laporta, Gibbs, and Jameson Williams. And I that's probably right about right. Maybe throw in Reynolds in there. I don't remember what his week 17 looked like. But looking at it, Jim says you can't get Gibbs and Amon-Ra this year. You probably could have last year with Amon-Ra being a rookie. So that again, that's going back to last year, but it's still a solid 5 that Chris threw out there if he could get it. And then Joel popping in. Our Sunday co-host over there on Dynasty After Party. What's up, Best Ballers? But you got to get Joel in here to enjoy the best ball streets with us one day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would say just so going back to the question that Stacy had earlier, I pulled it up. The person who finished in like 7th in Best Ball Mania last year had 5 players from the Baltimore Ravens on their roster. 4
Okay.
of them scored more than 0 points for them in that final week.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
We get to this third and fourth round here. We had DJ Moore start off the third round. Devon Achane, Derrick Henry, Sam Laporta, the first tight end off the board. DK Metcalf, Cooper Kupp, Josh Allen, the first tight end. I'm sorry, the first quarterback off the board. Michael Pittman Jr., Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, Malik Neighbors, I believe would be the second, maybe the second rookie off the board. Trey McBride to end out the third round. Wrapping that would be Zay Flowers, Travis Kelce, Jalen Hurts, T. Higgins, George Pickens, Tank Dell, Isaiah Pacheco, Lamar Jackson, Travis Etienne, Amari Cooper, Josh Jacobs, and then Anthony Richardson as QB4 off the board here. A couple more QBs coming off in the fifth round. We'll get to that in just a second. So far, what are your initial favorites for correlation of week 17?
Yeah, so I think it's really easy off the bat to love the Detroit San Francisco game, just because that is likely to be such a solid matchup. First off, we already have betting lines for week 17, which is bonkers to me, like how we have those already.
Yeah.
As it stands right now at the recording of this show, that has the highest total for that week. It's currently at 49.5. That's higher than any of the others, and it's by a comfortable margin. It's about 1.5 points higher than the next highest matchup. And then there's another point drop off to the third highest matchup. So the betting markets are already saying this is likely to be a high scoring game. It also has a ton of good players. My biggest issue with it, and why it probably is going to end up falling down my rankings as the draft season progresses, is it is incredibly hard to stack this matchup, to the point that was just raised in the comment section. You have 3 players in this matchup with the first round draft grade, and then another 2 with a second round draft ADP. So it's going to be very challenging to actually pull this off. However, and I think also it's going to be challenging to get different with this matchup, because the way the ADP is falling, if people are really trying to attack this game, I think there's going to be a lot of people in that first pick slot who get Christian McCaffrey, and then they end up bringing it back with Sam Laporta because his ADP is at an appropriate space to enable that to happen.
So I'd written that down earlier about bringbacks and what those are. And I know, like I said, just trying to get everybody familiar with the lingo that we're using. Austin, you're on the clock now. So when you make your pick, if you wouldn't mind explaining what a bringback is.
Well, and before you do that, Austin, I'll let you do yours. But Stacy, who is your week 17 favorite matchup outside of the Detroit 49er game?
It's outside of Green Bay, Minnesota. I love that. Absolutely. One, it's a dome game, which I love dome games. Week 17, they're my fave. But I mean, also it's a pretty reasonable build to do. You can get a lot of these guys later rounds. You don't have to spend a ton of draft capital on them. Obviously there's Justin Jefferson for sure. But and there's so many different guys that you can get that I feel like are good, valuable players that are going to be productive. So I like that stack the best for me right now that I've seen in the ones that I've done so far. To me, it's the easiest to kind of do. And I'm a little bit of a homer, so go Pack, go. But yeah, that's one of the ones that I really like to do. The Lion 49er is not terrible, like we were just talking about. You can make that happen. One of the ones that's been a little tough for me is Ravens Texans, but Austin, you got some Ravens Texans going on in yours there too. That's really nice.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the Ravens Texans right now, and there's some interesting kind of crossover between the teams that they play. Miami. Oh no, it is Ravens Texans, but they also. I've got a little Miami action in there, who plays Houston in week 15 and then plays Cleveland in week 17. So I'm trying to spread that around a bit.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm loving some of the correlation that both of you have going here. This is very interesting, and at the players that are falling to you guys are value wise. I think you're getting them at great picks. So Loving that.
I've
Austin
been trying
too.
to do a bully tight end, at some point. So I figured now is the time I might as well pull that trigger and go with McBride and Pitts there. I've been trying to make that happen for a little bit. So we'll see if it makes sense. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you're what, in round 7, coming into round 7. You're almost halfway through round 7. I think that's not a bad strategy. You're seeing a couple of these quarterbacks fly off the board here. And before I get to round 5 and round 6 recap real quick, I do want to go back to Stacy's question to you, Austin. Explain what bring back is.
Yeah, so bring back is how we usually describe when you do the correlation, like the act of correlating is you bring it back with another player. That's how I tend to think of it. So if, like in this draft, I took Tyreek Hill with my first pick, and Miami is playing Cleveland in week 17. And so Amari Cooper is my bring back player on that correlation. So I'm betting on, Miami and Cleveland getting a kind of a battle through the air, and the two of them, Amari Cooper and Tyreek Hill, really playing a big role in their offenses that week and having big ceiling fantasy football performances.
And as a bad host always does, I did not bring up the week 17 docket, but I do believe who is Cleveland? Cleveland's playing an
Miami.
Interesting. Yeah, that's
Miami.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
so
an interesting one for week 17 as well.
Right.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. I will say it feels a little risky to me because the Cleveland defense is pretty good. So it can fail, but I think that makes it also unique. So there's a story you can tell where it's going to have a lot of upside, and some people might shy away from it for like maybe they're afraid of the Cleveland offense this year, which I think there's a lot of reason to be afraid of that offense this year. And then again, afraid of the defense for Miami's upside.
Well, and I was thinking even just weather-wise, right? Cleveland in week 17 could be pretty brutal as far as, weather, cold, rain, just kind of really gross conditions, and it's outside. So that's another reason why that kind of scared me away from that matchup. It wasn't one that I really enjoyed. Same with Chiefs and Steelers. Austin, how do you feel about that? Because I feel like that's just whoever made the week 17 schedule. I just, again, like my tinfoil hat conspiracy theory is that they just hate fantasy football.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I have that matchup between Pittsburgh and Kansas City as my 15th ranked game right now, because I am really, really not a fan of it. It's like, especially now that Kansas City, like their defense has become so stellar over the past year. I'm really worried it could just be a really gross, low scoring game.
Yeah. I mean, that like kind of like screams like a 10-7 game, something like that, right?
It does. Now, I will say I'm about to kind of like fly in the face of this conversation because Jaylen Warren in the 9th round is such great value, or in the 8th round is such great value. And I do think, he has a chance to take over that role, and people might actually be afraid of that Kansas City Pittsburgh game, but also Baltimore plays Pittsburgh in week 16. And I've already gotten some exposure to that Baltimore team. So I'm trying to stay within those team correlations as much as possible.
Well, and if there's anybody that I want from Pittsburgh, sorry, Gator, I was just going to say, if there's anybody I want from Pittsburgh, I don't want any part of that offense except for Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. Like if I'm going to take anybody, it's those two, and that's it. No, thank you for anybody else.
I'm with you there.
Yeah, Stacy's skipping ahead on the sheet here, asking the question, but it didn't come across as what's on the sheet, so it confused me. But that's okay. That's okay. Before we go, no, I'm just giving Stacy. I'm just giving you a hard time.
We use the term "bring back," and I thought, you know what, we should just talk about it now.
No. That's perfect. That's perfect. I was referring to the next question, but that's fine. No, you're good. Let me run through week 5. Round 5 and 6 before you scroll too much here. We got Mark Andrews, Patrick Mahomes, Dalton Kincaid, C.J. Stroud, James Cook, Joe Mixon, Terry McLaurin, Christian Kirk, Rashad White, Jaden Reed, Xavier Worthy, Kyle Pitts, Jordan Addison, George Kittle, Keenan Allen, Joe Burrow, Kenneth Walker, Marquise Brown, Ladd McConkey, Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin, Keon Coleman, who I am slowly becoming around on. I don't like his play, but I love him off the field. I mean, he's a star is being born there in Buffalo.
Is there
Rome
anybody
Odunze.
easier to root for than Keon Coleman?
What's that?
Is there anybody easier to root for than Keon Coleman?
Well, no, and so one of my favorite players back in the late 90s was and I was not a Buffalo fan by any means, but was Andre Reed, right, from Buffalo. And then so I believe it was at the rookie experience or whatever that they just had out in LA.
Yeah.
Keon Coleman was standing there taking a picture, and in walks Andre Reed in the yellow puff jacket. Walks up to him and goes, "I got it for $79.99."
Oh my goodness.
And then he hands him a chain to go around his neck with a buffalo wing on it. And all Keon wanted to know was, is the buffalo wing real? He's like, I want to eat it. Is it real? So, but after Keon Coleman, we had Roman Dunze and then Alvin Kamara. Real quick, Austin, Stacy's going to be on the clock here. I just want to look at these two rookies that went back to back here with Keon Coleman and Roman Dunze. You're surprised, number one, that they went in the 6th round. Number two, were you surprised that Keon Coleman went ahead of Rome Odunze?
Yes, I am. I think the hype is really getting there with the connection with Josh Allen. And honestly, I didn't even realize that Rome Odunze was on the board when I drafted Keon Coleman. I had a misclick the round before and took Dalton Kincaid. I was like, well, I guess we're stacking Buffalo now. And so I took Keon Coleman in that next round. And yeah, it is actually surprising. And I think that's actually like pretty reflective of where the ADP is right now. I think it also just does make sense to me, though. I feel like Keon Coleman has a chance to break into at least a number 2 role in Buffalo, if not the number 1 role. And Rome Odunze, he's got a big potential to be buried behind both. Wow, why did his name just escape me? First off, DJ Moore, and then
Keenan Allen.
Jesus. So he's easily got a chance to be the wide receiver 3 on his own team, and so I think that'll cause him to fall down ADP boards.
So then in round 7, we had Deontay Johnson, Aaron Jones, Ramondre Stevenson, Christian Watson, the healthy hamstring that is Christian Watson, David Montgomery, Zamir White, Evan Ingram, Kyler Murray, BTJ, Brian Thomas Jr., DeAndre Swift, Jackson Smith-Njigba, James Conner, and then wrapping the 7-8 turn, starting off with Stacy's very own quarterback love she has, Jordan Love, Jonathan Brooks, Jake Ferguson, Zach Moss, Jamison Williams, DeAndre Hopkins, Brock Bowers, Tony Pollard, Raheem Mostert, Jalen Warren, Rashid Rice, who just continues to plummet down the board, and then Nick Chubb there rounding out the 8th round. Stacy, if you can scroll it up at that point, we're pretty much caught up there. But I do want to go back to the week 17s, and let's take out the Miami Cleveland game, and now also take out that Pittsburgh and KC game. But which of these matchups have the potential to have the lowest amount of scoring when it comes to best ball? In other words, which ones are you staying away from in week 17?
I don't love Titans Jags. Austin, how do you feel about that one?
I'm with you there. It's pretty low on my board. I have it ranked 14th currently overall. It's over underline is actually like better than I would expect. It's at 46, but I just don't feel excited about it. I feel like that's going to come down throughout the season because I don't have faith in either of those rosters, particularly on the Titans side.
Yeah, that's I don't know. I don't like that one. The Colts Giants to me seems like a trap game too. I don't know that I love that one that much either. And that's in New York.
I think that one's going to depend on health, and we can't predict that right now, right?
Week 17, yeah. So that who knows there. There was another one that I didn't love. Now I'm trying to find it here. Raiders Saints seems like that could be a little ugly too, even though it is a dome game. So, you don't have to worry about weather implications. I guess either way, it would be a dome game.
Yeah, that is it is one of the lowest total lines right now. It's at 43. The one that really scares me right now the most is the Chargers Patriots matchup. That one by far is the lowest total line too. It's at 41. And I will say, like, I think it's going to be unique to go that route because I don't think people are really drafting a ton of Patriots this year. And I don't even think people are really drafting a ton of Chargers this year. Like, they don't really have the receivers use that they had last year for people to go after them. And I mean, Justin Herbert, he's QB 17 right now by ADP. So I do feel like it's a way to get different, but it is a matchup that scares me.
You can get him so cheap. The only Charger receiver that I'm really interested in is Ladd McConkey.
Austin, you are coming up on the clock here, but you guys brought up I guess a great point of how, people are staying away from these games. You would recommend people stay away from these games, but in a smaller tournament. And when I say smaller, not necessarily the amount of people, but the dollar amount, right? So one of these, maybe one of these 50 spots you can buy in for $5, where you can have 50 different teams. Would it be okay at that point to sit there and go, okay, let me correlate the games that nobody wants? The Chiefs, Pittsburgh, the Raiders, Saints. Is that a smart move at all?
Are you saying in a smaller contest?
Yeah. When I say smaller, I mean dollar amount wise. I wouldn't recommend doing it in a $25 or $100 one, but maybe in a $5 one, if you can get multiple entries into it, and then just taking one of your entries and going, okay, let me correlate the stuff the completely opposite of what everybody else. I know nobody else is going to be messing with, the whatever, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, which, they're going to be messing with some of them, but if I'm just going to strictly correlate that game, or, what was the other one Stacy brought up about the Colts and Giants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I am max entering a contest, I am more likely to do that. So it depends more on my approach to the contest than the entry fee in general. So there were a bunch of contests that were 20 max enters that were $3 contests on Underdog, like the small board, I think, or the little board is what they called it. I max entered those, and so for those, I'm like really like focused on like getting different sets of exposures from different teams. And so if there's a contest where I'm trying to approach it that way, now that I know the schedule, what I'll probably do is I'll say, there's 5 or 6 of those. I'm going to focus on 1 or 2 matchups that I really love, and do the same for another 5 or 6. And then I'll have some dart throws. I'll have like 3 or 4 lineups. And this is kind of similar to what I do when I play DFS and I do those 20 max entries. Is I'll pick a quarterback and I'll pick a quarterback, and then I'll have 6 lineups with that quarterback stacked in different ways. I'll do that for 3 different times. So that's 18 lineups total. And then I'll have 2 lineups that are kind of like dart throw wild card ones. And so I'll take a similar approach to tournament settings and best ball as well, where I kind of like treat it as a portfolio. I spread the love around and try and get different in some ways, but I don't necessarily enter those lower fee contests simply to get really weird with my lineup.
Stacy, same question.
Yeah, well, tell me the question again, because I was over here. I was listening to Austin's answer, and I was over here messing around with my queue a little bit. So tell me what your original question was, so I make sure I actually answer it. Like I don't most of the time and just go off on my own tangent. So
I just like, I wanted to get your opinion on on some of these lower dollar amount entries, but where you can absolutely you can have 5 or 50, 60, 70, 100 entries into this one tournament. Would you take one of those teams and just be, as they like to say, completely contrarian and go away from the normal, everybody's doing these builds, and go and dive into somebody like the Colts, Giants, somebody like the what is it, the Chargers, New England, and try to correlate those just to be completely different, just for
Yeah, so I mean, I have yet to max enter anything so far. Maybe one day that's what I can aspire to do. But what I tend to do is if I am going to do a lot of one particular draft, even if it's not like maxing them out, I do like to kind of maybe take a different approach than what I normally do, right? Because I mean, I think, that's good for exposure reasons to, kind of get away from what you're typically drafting, especially if you're in a different draft position than where you normally are. I went for weeks on Best Ball Mania where I was 7, 8, or 9. Every single one of my drafts looked so similar because those were the guys that were falling. And, I mean, if AJ Brown is there, I think like you had to take him last year, right? So if you find yourself in a different spot, you can play around with different builds. So I do like, I don't want to say being contrarian, but I do like trying different things. And going out there because you never know, right? I mean, you may think, oh, obviously everybody in the Chiefs are going to be so great, but who's to say something crazy doesn't happen? And maybe they don't have the best fantasy year. There's so many different things that can work out with guys that you're drafting, injuries, that kind of stuff. So I do like to do one or two that's just a little bit different than what I normally do. And I don't necessarily mean that you have to pick like the worst matchup out of the group, right? But I think I'm just more so of a proponent of kind of getting out there and at least having one or two teams that are a little bit different than how you typically draft. I mean, if you feel strongly about players, and you should draft them, right? Because at the end of the day, this is for fun. You want to be excited about your teams and watching those games every week, right? But if you are entering several of these, that's the fun of being able to do that, right? Is that you can mess around with different builds and find what you like and find what things are easier to, stack and those kind of things. So, I don't think you have to do it just to be a little crazy, but I don't think there's anything wrong with kind of getting out there and, playing around with some different ways to put your team together. I want to say hey to everybody in the chat,
Yep.
especially hey Hema over there. Nice to see you all, everybody. Love that everybody is coming hanging out with us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Jim's going to be hanging out with us on a regular now. He's coming back, and I'm not going to say he's stalking me, but he's
Jim is like Jim's in class tonight. Should be working on some homework. So he's got
schmomework. Who cares?
over here. He's a big Mecole Pruitt fan. Don't ask Jim about the Steelers tight end room unless you're just ready for him to. He's got like this whole I keep telling him he's got to like put it out like in form on the internet somehow. But he's got this whole like theory going with Arthur Smith and all of their tight ends and everything. He's done like a whole bunch of research into it. So like I said, he really needs to share that with everybody.
The only thing that matters about the tight end room there in Pittsburgh is Darnell Washington's hand size. That's all that matters.
Absolutely.
Oh, good Lord. Good Lord.
I know.
Stacy, scroll up just a little bit so I can see round.
As soon as I do my draft pick real quick. Hang on.
We'll get round 9 in here, and hopefully by then we'll be ready to go on to these next. I think I've got at least one more great question for you, Austin. No, the other way, please.
Oh, you want to
I want to read 9 right quick. Round 9 started with Dak Prescott, Najee Harris, Tua Tagovailoa, Trey Benson, Austin Eckler, Curtis Samuel, Caleb Williams finally off the board there. Tyler Lockett, David Njoku, Javonte Williams, Brock Purdy, Brian Robinson Jr., Jahan Dotson, back-to-back Washington guys right there. Devin Singletary, Gus Edwards, Jaden Daniels, Chase Brown, Romeo Dobbs, Jared Goff, Cortland Sutton, Dalton Schultz, Mike Williams, Khalil Shakir, TJ Hawkinson, Josh Palmer starting the 11th round with Josh Palmer, Dallas Goedert, Adonai Mitchell, Tajay Spears, Jacoby Myers, Jerome Ford, Blake Corum, Ezekiel Elliott, Antonio Gibson, Rashid Shaheed, Jerry Jeudy, Kirk Cousins to wrap out the 11th round. See, we are going into, you're starting off in the 14th now, I believe it is.
Yes.
Yeah, so you're into the 14th now. So I'll go ahead and read off 12 and 13 here as well. Rico Dowell, Zach Charbonnet, Pat Freiermuth, Xavier Legette. I'm going to come back to Xavier Legette because I want Austin's thoughts on Xavier Legette being there in Carolina. Justin Herbert, Josh Downs, Matthew Stafford, Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Wright, Jalen Polk, Brandon Cooks, Devontae Wicks. Devontae Devontavian
Dontavian.
Devontavian Wicks.
Yeah.
Tyler Algiers, Gabe Davis, Ray Davis, Ricky Pearsall, Cole Kmet, Hunter Henry, Marshawn Lloyd, Quentin Johnston, Donnell Mooney, Aaron Rodgers, Kendre Miller, and then Ty Chandler to end the 13th. Starting the 15th now. So we got the 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th round. But I do want to go back up here to Xaviar Legette being drafted. Was it the end of the first round, beginning of the second round by the Panthers? Austin, I know you do a lot of work with the Panthers and that sort of thing, but give me your scouting report on Xaviar Legette and how this fits with that offense.
Yeah, well, first off, if you want to see what I had to say about him, you can go to Last Word on Sports and check out what I actually wrote about him. You can also find that on my Twitter account. I think it's currently the pinned tweet on my page. I think the thing that was appealing to for the Panthers to draft Xaviar Legette, I think first is the fact that it wasn't someone that the previous regime drafted. I think that was a big thing for them this year, that they were just looking to start clean, fresh slate from the previous coaching staff and the previous general manager. So I think some of it was just purely like, it's time to get our guys. This is a new thing here. But I also think that something that is good for him and why the Panthers were interested in him is because he's a big target for Bryce Young. So that's going to be good given the fact that Bryce Young is very small and needs to have big targets to throw to. So they're very clearly open. But also Legette, I think he's a ball winner. Like he can go up, he can high point balls, get that contested catches. So I like him for this offense. I think he could slide into at least a wide receiver 2 role pretty easily for the Panthers. It's going to be a little bit crowded, honestly, now between him, Deontay Johnson, and Adam Thielen. Like all three of them, I think they can command targets pretty well, but I think it's going to be a pretty low volume passing offense. I think they're going to run the ball a lot. They're going to probably try and make it simple, slow the clock down. So I'm not counting on it for a ton of volume, but I do like Legette as a prospect for the Panthers, and I think his ADP is pretty dang low as well, which is makes it nice for some dart throws on a way to get different, because people aren't going to want to pick Carolina Panthers players in these tournaments, and I do think sprinkling them in here and there, don't go wild with them. Like you don't need a lot of them, but just like a couple here and there is a fun way to get a little different.
Yeah, and if you can get him this late, what was that, the 9th round, I believe it was, and then you can turn around and maybe stack him with Bryce Young. You can also, I believe that week 17 matchup is at Tampa.
Yes.
So that's it's the Southeast. We know what the weather's like in the Southeast, especially week 17. It's going to be hot. It might rain for 10 minutes, but as they say in Florida, you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But that's going to be a nice game. It should be, and you can correlate that game pretty damn easy.
Yes. There's another thing about this game that I really love. And it's I'm in a slow draft right now. I do a lot of slow drafts. I'm in a slow draft right now where I'm actually trying to implement this. Dallas plays both Carolina and Tampa Bay in the playoffs. So Dallas plays Carolina week 15 and Tampa Bay week 16. And then in week 17, they play the Philadelphia Eagles. So I love starting my draft off with 3 players from that Eagles-Dallas matchup. I did this today. I started with CeeDee Lamb, Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts, and now I know Chris Godwin's going to be available later on. Those Carolina Panthers are going to be available way later on, and so I have a very easy way to kind of hit all 3 of those weeks in my lineup for this contest.
Yeah, that could be a sneaky game. What's the total on that one? Do you have that one sitting in front of you?
I do have that one sitting in front of me. I'm just going to stall for a second while I pull it up. Yeah, the total. So the total's kind of low. It's at 43, and it's on the low end of these games. The game spread too. What's interesting about this though is at 5. I believe that's favoring Tampa Bay right now. So one way you can think about that even now is that Tampa Bay is ahead, so that might mean a lot of Rashad White action in the game, playing from ahead, and a lot of Bryce Young trying to throw the ball to catch up. So there you can naturally tell yourself a story based on the betting lines and start to build your team based off of that.
You are back on the clock here.
John, I actually made a cue. Thank
okay. Awesome. Going back to the overall best ball and the terminology that people use, you hear the phrase naked, whatever. Naked, fill in the blank. What does that mean? What does it mean when you say naked this?
Yeah, it means I'm at least the way I use it is I'm drafting a player without any stack or correlation. Just saying I want this player and I'm getting out of that matchup because I don't like anything else about it. I feel like this comes up a lot in DFS where let's say you have a dual threat quarterback and they're in a really bad offensive situation. You might just play them naked and go by themselves. I think you can do have that same concept happen in best ball. I'm trying to think of a good example of this for teams this year. Like, honestly, I think to Stacy's point earlier about the Pittsburgh running backs, I feel like there's going to be a lot of that happening where you just get one of the Pittsburgh players and you get out of there. I ended up doing this, I think, with New England, where I'm like, I got one. That's all I need. I just needed a running back at the time, and the value was there.
Stacy, when you say naked, is that the exact same thing that you're talking about there? And is it okay? Is it okay in your mind that when you're correlating, is it okay to just have the one guy and then not worry about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm exactly on the same page with Austin there. I mean, I think that's totally fine. Especially I like that example that you gave to Austin, like the Pittsburgh guys. Like, you really don't want anybody else, from that offense, right? I mean, oof. I mean, you're rolling the dice essentially there, and especially given that Arthur Smith is there to such a run heavy team with any of those receivers and pass catchers, it's a tough way to go. So yeah, I like the example with the naked running backs for Pittsburgh. So I think it's fine. I think, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what the situation calls for, that specific player, I think then that's totally fine. I think I was looking at my team. I feel like I had a few naked people on my team until I grabbed Dameon Pierce here. I guess it's not really, well, that's kind of a little correlation there to go with my Zay Flowers pick. So I really want Joe Mixon. I kind of hate that I have Dameon Pierce. Sorry, Dameon Pierce. But,
I will say it is actually impossible to not correlate at all because there are 18 roster spots in Underdog Best Ball. There are 16 games in week 17. So you are guaranteed to correlate by accident. I recommend don't do it by accident, actually have a plan, but you will correlate by accident. That's why everybody, there's not a single roster out there that had zero correlation in week 17. But it was that the more correlation people had, oftentimes the better they did up until a certain point.
Well, this draft just looks like it's wrapping up here. So I do want to recap some of the draft. Yes. So, but before we do that, we've got a couple special guests in the background that I do want them to come on, and I want them to talk about what they have going on in their tournament. So I'm going to drop the board off and bring up Wendy Early and Mike here, and I'm going to bring us up to a little bit bigger of a screen here. So welcome to the show, guys.
Hello,
and
everyone.
Wendy.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. I'm so excited.
Absolutely, and you guys are running the tournament, Battle of the Sexes tournament. First of all, welcome. But Wendy, how did the Battle of the Sexes come to be? How did the tournament come about?
Well, first of all, this was all Michael's brainchild. This guy is so smart. I don't know what I'm doing here. We were in a Scott Fish Bowl chat for the 8 position, and we kind of had a little group of people. They were like, hey, we want you to come and play in this dynasty league. We're trying to get women that want to be involved. And I'm like, dynasty? I watched that TV show like years ago, but I didn't know what dynasty was. And guess what? I don't like it. But anyways, I'm just not a fan. So, but the thing is these guys, all of these guys treated me like gold. Like they were like, hey, we don't even want to do it if you're not coming. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And they really have. And so Michael kind of sent me a message one day, and he's like, hey, I got this idea. I really want to get more women to play in fantasy football and don't feel intimidated. Because even myself, like any home league I've ever been in, I'm the only woman. I've never been in a league that has other women. And it is intimidating sometimes, especially a live draft. But, when he said that, I was like, so I was like, absolutely. I knew it right away with Michael. He's the stats guy. I'm the social person. So I'm going to kick it over to him. That's how it got started.
Well, and that's probably the smartest move he ever made, was getting somebody like you, right? Because he wouldn't have been able to do this on his own. He had to go get Wendy to be like, okay, I need somebody
effort.
that's social.
No, when a guy says we need more women to play, like it's not as impactful as when other women recruit other women. So, I have a stats background, so correlation is king is hilarious. Love that. I'm full of like power stats sheets and Excel documents, and I keep track of like literally everything until my amount of leagues got to be too much. But yeah, it's last year we were lucky enough to have 180 total people, and the unique format of this is we force it to be a 50-50 split. So there are 6 women and 6 men in each division, and we get more men that want to come play, but we force it to be that and limit it because we just want to make sure that like women feel comfortable. And this year we've got 30 new women that never played last year, including my mom and some of my friends in St. Louis that are playing. Stacy's playing. So we're really excited, and the theme this year is TV couples. And I know that it's always kind of fun to like pick your own division and pick who you play against. So I opened that up this year. I'm opening up mid-season waivers because last year I think you get kind of discouraged when midway through the season half of your roster is injured, and so this gives a little bit of hope for those teams. And then we
did take a poll. Michael was very good about that. At the end of the year, he's like, hey, how can we make this better?
Yeah.
And that was one of the things. So I've never done that before, mid-season waivers. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Now this is a best ball format, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So opening up waivers mid-season, that's interesting. That's an interesting way to keep everybody engaged at what's going on.
That was the hope, is that like, there are some people that obviously just want to draft and forget about it. And we leave it, if that's what you want to do, that's totally fine. And the reason we wanted best ball in this format is it brings in that casual person who wants to play and try it out. And that's really what we're hoping for. And like my mom was like, I really want to get in on this and try it out. So her partner and we're all in the same division together with some of my friends. So we're really excited about that. And yeah, we raised last year, we raised nearly $6,000, and it was split pretty evenly between Living Beyond Breast Cancer, somebody in the group.
That would be Kelly's thing. That would be Kelly's thing. We have to give props to Kelly.
Yep.
Reached out to her, said, what is a good breast cancer organization that you would feel comfortable with? And that was it. So props to Kelly. Thank you.
Yep. And also, got to give props to her because her and Trophy Smack are very gracious enough to donate a custom ring for the winner. And then we also have a Scott Fishbowl entry for 2015 for the winner as well. And last year, the winner was Cindy Kornberg, who, believe it or not, then also won the trip to Vegas.
Yes.
So she was like on a little bit of a winning streak the last couple of weeks. So
that's because she's a winner.
What's funny is I was actually watching that stream from Fantasy Cares when she won that trip to Vegas. And I want to say somebody in the chat was like, give back the battle of the sexes. Somebody else can have that entries.
Hey, let me tell you something about Cindy, you guys. I got to meet up with her. We met at the Combine because she lives in Cincinnati. And so I drove to the Combine and she met me there. So we got to meet up there, but we really got to spend a lot of time at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway last week. And it got rained out. So we had to sit and talk, which, you know what, was probably like the best thing that could have happened in that situation. And she is something else. So props to her too. Another bad ass woman.
Yeah.
Josh,
and let me tell you, last year, so the format, it's a unique format. So the way we do the playoffs is the top 2 teams in each division, regardless of men, women, whatever, top records, move on to the playoffs, and they get bye seeds. And then the next 4, it's based on the top 2 scoring men and women. So we kind of try and balance that out a little bit. I think last year there was a few more women that made it into the playoffs, but then it like cuts in half each week. And so by the end, you get essentially like one representative per division. And there's my math skills trying to figure out like, how do I create a final that like allows it to grow so that as the number of divisions grow, the number of finalists can also grow. And last year, 11 of the 15 finalists were all women. So, I mean, they like dominated all year.
Yeah.
And it was really fun to watch and be a part of all of that.
so how can people sign up?
So we've got a Twitter handle. It's and I got to remember this. It's FF_BattleOTS. On that page, there is a form, a Google form where you can sign up and fill out an entry form. You can also just reach out to one of us directly. My name's Mr. Aladdin23 on Twitter, and then Wendy obviously has her handle in the picture there. And you can just reach out to one of us. We'll get you signed up. I'm at a point where I'm trying to get more women in before I start to add more men in. But we currently have, I think, 99 men and about 92 to 94 women. There's a couple women that have signed up that haven't signed into a division yet. And then, like I said, there's about 30 women that played last year. Some big names too, but they're all like running their own Fantasy Cares Eliminator. Mm-hmm. So all of them were kind of just like waiting till that dies down before bombarding them a little bit. So yeah. We've got a lot of people that we can still grow this with.
Yep. And we really appreciate you guys letting us come on. And one thing that I really want people to know, because I had a couple women that were like, well, we don't like that, men versus women. That's not what this is about, you guys. So, that's really what we want to get that message out there. It's to encourage women that might not want to ever play in a league with all men, so now you're even. We've got a couples division if you want to play against your spouse.
Let me tell you, this is so much fun. So we picked off 3 of the divisions for something special. So one of the divisions is a couples only division. So we've got 6 couples that are going to be playing against each other. And that's going to be like a lot of fun in the household. We've got a father-daughter division, which is, I think, awesome. It's right now we've got 4 dads and their daughters. We're looking for 2 more. And then we've got a special prize for the top performing daughter at the end of the year. We've got a really cool t-shirt that we're going to give away to them. And I'm trying to sneak with one of our charities that we support is Play Like a Girl charity. So Project Zero so we do a breast cancer, we do a prostate cancer charity, and then Play Like a Girl. I'm trying to work with them to hook us up with something as well. And then we've got, because the most iconic couple in TV show history is Friends with Ross and Rachel. We've got We Were on a Break mug for the winner of that, and we've been trying to give away spots. And we I'm going to go ahead and announce, because we have at least one person that we're going to add in. Jason Snyder, who has run the SFB Hopefuls. He and I kind of went back and forth with some Friends memes. And I'm very happy to say that he's going to be in the Friends group. He's in.
I voted for him.
Yeah. So it's really exciting. And one of the coolest things is we've got at least 2 families that I know of where the wife is playing and then the father and daughter are playing in that division as well. So it's a whole family affair.
Also, and if you're a man and you bring a woman with you to join, you're automatically in. You don't have to worry about getting an invite. If you bring a woman with you, you are in.
Bring your wife, your girlfriend, your daughter,
both, whatever.
Yeah, your cousin, your niece, what? Both.
We don't discriminate.
That will end up in my office if they bring both.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is Wendy's attempt to help Stacy's career out here.
We gotta
I got you, girl.
And I also want to give a special shout out to Howard Bender, because last year we had a pretty decent number. We probably had about 70 to 80 people that had signed up. And then Howard Bender was gracious enough to let us onto his show. And within like a week, our enrollment doubled just from being on his show. So really want to give a special shout out to him. Obviously,
his wife played too. His wife came and played too.
That's great.
Yeah.
So
super. So I have one quote. I know you guys are going to want us to get out of here so you can finish your show, and thank you again. But on the Play Like a Girl, Michael's a girl dad, okay, and he's very, very busy. We're very fortunate, so thank you, Michael.
But I out of 3, by the way. I've got twin 4-year-old girls and a 1-year-old. So
yes. Yeah. So I wanted to kind of focus on the Play Like a Girl real quick, because we didn't talk about that too much. They're a national 501c3 nonprofit organization founded on the belief that girls given the opportunity to play on a team become women with the confidence to stand on their own. And that's one of their missions. And I really liked that when I saw that. So, everybody kind of, give their support to all 3 of those. It is not a requirement to make a donation to play in our tournament. This is a charity tournament. If you cannot afford, we don't care. We want you to donate. We would love you. Yeah.
Safe. Yeah. Now, what we do have for people who just enough to make a donation, we've got a couple jerseys, and I'll pull this up here. We've got number 3 from the Texans. I don't know if you guys know who that is.
There's some guy named Tank. Tank Dell. That's what it is.
Funny enough, the number of times he was shot in the nightclub. No, I'm just kidding.
Do you have the bullet hole in that?
Yeah. I do not.
He would be keeping it.
And we also have a couple other special jerseys that we went ahead and purchased as well. I was very lucky in fantasy football this year, so I took some of the winnings to put back into this tournament. So very happy.
Nice.
Yes.
Awesome. Well,
now I have one question for you guys really quick.
Ooh.
So how are you guys handling the bye week situations?
Austin?
Have you guys thought about that? Because I have like 20 fantasy cares eliminators, and then the bye weeks got announced, and I was like scrambling to try and find holes to fill in week 14 especially.
Well, hang on one second, Austin, before you go there. I'm in, this will be my first year I'm doing the fantasy cares eliminators, right? So I'm in 5 of them, I think it's 5. With the scoring this year, I don't know that the bye weeks even matter, because you may score more on a bye week than you would any other week.
So you know what I did?
I'm in 13 of those.
Yeah. One of the strategies I did was I was running out of spots and there was nobody to pick up. And so I went and looked at coaches that were going to lose in week 14. I think the Bears might play the 49ers or Chiefs or something like that. Like there's a couple games where like you kind of know they're going to lose. Or you just pick both coaches in that game and you're guaranteed to get one of them.
Get your 10 points, huh?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Austin, but to Mike's question there, how are you handling the week 4 or bye weeks in general?
Because week 10, 12, and 14 are all pretty heavy.
Yes, they are. There's 16 bye week and week 14. Looks like 6 in week 12. Only 4 in week 10, but I think week 12 and weeks 14 are going to be the big ones for bye weeks. I mean, in general, I only pay attention to it in best ball with my quarterbacks and my tight ends, just make sure they're not on the same bye week. And then after that, I don't pay too much attention to it, and honestly, it almost got me in trouble on this draft we just did because I looked down and suddenly I was like, wait, I have 3 receivers on bye week at the same time, and then I decided, okay, I will make sure to avoid that bye week moving forward. But usually, I'm not stressing about it too much outside of that quarterback and tight end position.
I mean, I even heard or saw something on Twitter, and it was like, avoid week 14 in your playoffs. Like just skip over it. Just go week 13 and week 15, and just skip over week 14, and as a way of getting around it. So
that's one way, I guess.
Yeah.
The NFL has clearly stated they do not care about your fantasy team.
Yeah.
This is true. This is true. Yep. But thank you again, you guys. And please, anyone that wants to play Battle of the Sexes, reach out to Michael or myself and Tracy. Tracy is very involved.
We can't forget about her.
Yeah, Tracy Norton Gilmore. She did all of the invitation. She did all the graphics for us, and she created her own division last year. She brought an entire division, so we really appreciated that. But thank you guys so much, and please come and play. Bring the women.
Before y'all get out of here,
put it in the chat.
Yes.
What was that, Stacy?
I was going to say, tell me the handle again, and I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, I'll put it in the. It's FF_Battle OTS.
Battle OTS. Okay.
Yeah, and then tell everybody where they can find you, Mike and Wendy. Tell everybody where they can find you to get signed up. They can go to FF_Battle OTS there, but they can also DM you. So go ahead and tell them where they can find you and DM you to get information as well.
Mr. Aladdin. So Mr. Aladdin 23. And I'll just do a quick little funny thing. So this year, obviously, it was movie characters. And I was really struggling because I really wanted to be in the Aladdin Naboo because, I mean,
I can't believe you didn't pick that. I'm so disappointed.
But when you get the opportunity to play against Shane Battier and Daniel Dopp from ESPN, you kind of just stay. I'm in the Goonies division. So the last 2 years, I drafted live out of St. Louis. And so this year they moved it to Kansas City, and I picked the Goonies division.
Awesome. And I am at Wendy Early, and make sure you guys have to look because my first name is spelled weird and so is my last name. I'm with an I on the end of Wendy, and it's EARLEY. So not only is my first name weird, my last name is weird, not to mention it's an oxymoron. Wendy Early. It doesn't happen. Thanks again, you guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Well, Wendy, and Michael, guys, thank you so much for coming. Wendy, especially coming into the Atlanta Braves den where your Cubs are playing our Braves tonight. So,
I don't even want to talk about it. All right, I gotta go.
Braves,
everybody.
Cubs are playing the Cardinals this weekend for Memorial Day. So
you can be quiet too. Whatever. You're
Cardinals are awful.
I was just gonna say you have no room to talk. All right, thanks again, everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks, y'all enjoy. Have a great night. That was fun. Look, we are at almost an hour and a half. I think what we should do is just go ahead and we'll recap the draft on Twitter. Stacy, I'll have you, if you can, screenshot that, send it to me, and I'll load it up on Twitter, and then we can absolutely talk about it on Twitter. But Austin, real quick, you talked about your 3 wide receivers that were on one bye week. When you noticed that, now you got to fix it. But how do you prepare for these bye weeks, going forward now, knowing, okay, that's the week I've got to avoid? How do you do that going forward?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's just getting familiar with the schedule, and I do a lot of slow drafts, so that also really helps. Like I can really check all of the bye weeks before I'm going into it. But again, 3 wide receivers on a bye week. I mean, it's Stephon Diggs, AD Mitchell, and Jalen Pope.
Okay, so that's not horrible.
2 of them. I'm really hoping they're not my starters, frankly. I'm hoping that my other receivers are outperforming them. So it's kind of okay that it's that way. And I mean, I have 7 receivers total on my roster, so it'll all work out. But in general, actually, I have 8 receivers. In general, I will just continue to get more familiar with the bye weeks and the way they're set up. And I don't like to overly stress about it whenever I'm drafting quickly, because then it gets me off of my strategy and that focus on those correlations for the playoffs. And it's a tournament. It's hard to win, so you have to kind of take a risk. And if you create too many rules and get too fixated on certain things, then it can make you do worse than if you just say, you know what, let me forget about that and focus on this other strategy.
Stacy, when you're looking at your team, what is the one thing that stands out that you feel like you either made a mistake or you were like, holy crap, I can't believe that happened, and that's so good for this team?
Yeah. So I've got a lot of Arizona and not a lot of the Rams there. So that's a bit of an oops on my part there. Is that I was hoping a few of those guys would come back and make it back to me, like the Cooper Cup. Was hoping maybe Blake Corum would come in there. And that didn't happen. So lesson learned for me. That's the first time I've tried to do that with Arizona, LA. So that might be a little difficult from the 12th spot. I did get Demarcus Robinson, so not all is lost, but I doubt that that's going to be a huge difference maker there in week 17, but you never know. So that's kind of lesson for me that, just trying to go off and do a little bit different, of a team there and or a matchup rather is, from at least from the 12, it didn't go the way that I wanted it to. So I think next time if I try that, I may not do it if I'm in that spot again.
So that's the big lesson is you may have to reach a little bit on trying to get a hold of that stake.
Yeah, if I'm really stuck on taking that matchup, then I'm definitely going to have to play around with where I take guys.
I think that's very, very fair. Don't forget, if you're not subscribed to Club Fantasy FFL over there on YouTube, we can fix that ASAP. All you got to do is smash the subscribe button. Of course, as always, make sure you hit that thumbs up for us. Not sure what we are doing next week. Stacy, do you have it in your in front of you of what we are doing next week? Next Tuesday, right here, 8:30 p.m. is our masterclass best ball. Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. is Who Is Your Caddy. There will not be one this week. Mr. Adam is out sick this week, so they'll push it off to the following week. But tomorrow night, our flagship, no pun intended, at 7 p.m. Saturday morning, Austin's show right there with Ryan Weiss. Mock It Like It's Hot at 11 a.m. Sunday morning, 11 a.m., Dynasty After Party. And then again next week, Monday night, 10 p.m., where my guest next week is D-Bro. Mr. Derek Brown from Fantasy Pros is joining Mocking with the Stars with Chris and myself. Did you see what we're doing next week, Stacy? What are we doing?
We are. So we're going to be jumping in. This is going to be a new format for us. New format for me, too. I have not drafted on this platform yet, but it's going to be the RTS, so the Real-Time Sports. We're going to be doing one of their best balls over there. So we will have more information on that if you want to draft with us. That's going to be one just kind of like the FFPC where you can sign up in advance. You don't have to wait till day of to do it. So be on the lookout for that and make sure you subscribe, just like Gator said, so you know exactly what we're doing and when we're doing it.
I guess you and I got some research to do with this new platform that we're going to be on. Austin, I greatly appreciate Stacy does too. Greatly appreciate you joining us tonight with Correlation. Tell the good people what you're working on, where they can find you, and of course, make sure you head over to clubfantasyffl.com where you can see all of Austin's rankings for the best ball side of things. Austin.
Yeah, so first off, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Austin_FFL. In terms of content to look out for, we are bringing back Summer School, our best ball strategy show that's going to be coming up in the next few weeks. We'll be breaking down how you should be drafting from all sorts of different angles. We'll talk more about that later. And then I'm also, as I mentioned earlier, going to be working on this Week 17 article where I break down all 16 matchups and which ones are favorable to be targeting in your best ball lineups. And if you're suffering Carolina Panthers fan, you can follow me for that coverage as well.
I don't know how long they're going to be suffering though, and it sucks for me because being a Tampa fan, I'm just watching what they're doing, and I think they're making the right moves. Maybe it's a year late for them making those moves, but I think they're making the right moves there, Austin. I think you're going to be happy in about 7-8 months, somewhere in that range. You're going to see the progress, and you're going to be happy. Those articles are going to get longer and longer and longer because you're going to have to keep writing. Stacy, tell the good people where they can find you and what you are working on.
Guys, I'm over at Stacy_Perez 83 on the Twitter machine. Just working on trying to get out there, find some more best ball drafts for us to do. Again, if there is a specific platform that you guys want to see us doing, a specific draft that you want us to do, make sure that you put that in our DMs. Gators open, mine are open, let us know, and we're happy to get that out there for you. I know there are some folks that still wanted to do an FFPC that didn't get to do it the last time. We do have more of those scheduled throughout the summer. So be on the lookout for that.
100%. You can find me at FantasyJ77 over there on Twitter. Like we said earlier, you can find Austin at Austin_FFL, Stacy at Stacy_Perez 83. For Austin, for Stacy, myself, until next time.